On this episode of Road Dirt, Ryan Nolan rides the all-new 2025 Yamaha YZF-R9 at Sonoma Raceway. Stay tuned.
Morning everyone, Ryan here with Road Dirt coming at you from beautiful Sonoma Raceway in California. I am here for the launch of the all-new Yamaha, the 2025 Yamaha R9. I am really excited to be able to ride this bike, be one of the first people stateside to throw a leg over the bike. There's been a lot of anticipation, as many of you know, for years about this bike. And I'll be honest, like many, I had those same thoughts that we've heard of. It's a replacement for the R6. It's just a rebadged MT-09 with fairings. And what we learned at the media briefing last night is that could not be further from the truth. Yamaha was very intentional about this bike, how it was designed and what it's for, and they're really rewriting and revolutionizing what Supersport means, making it more accessible, more affordable, and really just pushing the envelope with what that means. As you can hear, we already got some bikes out on track, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I will be bringing you updates throughout the day. We'll kind of do a midday review and talk about my initial impressions, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here at the end. But without further ado, I'm gonna go get ready to get on track. Hey everyone, Ryan checking in with a midday update. We're at lunch here at beautiful Sonoma Raceway. I've had some time to spin quite a few laps on the R9 this morning. I started out in the morning in Power Mode 2, which wasn't necessarily by choice. I didn't realize it was in Power Mode 2, but I got things switched over to Power Mode 1. All the settings were turned down to its lowest, and that session that I went out for the first time like that, it worked out where Josh Hayes actually came by me because he's here helping out and helping out with this launch with Yamaha, and he came by me and gave me a tow, which was really helpful. Gave me a lot of good, useful, constructive feedback on my riding. Like, I need to brake a lot more, which I know I definitely need to do, especially on this bike, because I've caught myself a lot. I'm coming into corners, really, I could almost roll back on the throttle because the brakes are really good on this bike with the Dilemmas. I was curious how they'd handle on the track versus how I experienced them on the street during the MT-09 SP launch last fall. And yeah, they feel great. I'm not getting any real fade from them or anything. As I start to push them more later in the day, we'll see kind of how that goes. But braking's really good. The chassis overall feels really nice from what I can tell so far. I'm getting really good direct feedback from the KYB suspension because I can tell basically what adjustments I think I need to make to really dial it in and really get even more out of the bike. It doesn't feel vague. I'm not wondering, I know it needs something, but I'm not really sure what. The chassis itself, and yeah, that KYB suspension is giving really good feedback and telling me what's going on and what it needs. So it's nice to be able, I can feel what's going on as far as like straight from the factory. It's sprung a little bit soft, but I've been on bikes before that are straight from the factory and it's overly soft. This I wouldn't say is overly soft. It's just a little bit soft, I'd say, for the track. It's probably right where you'd need for the street, and maybe even just a hair stiff, but I haven't obviously ridden this on the street to know that for sure. But from the track side, overall, it's a really good starting point. And that CP3 engine, the triple, is really nice and usable power. I did notice a little bit of a flat spot around like 5,000 RPM, but then when it picks up again around 6,000, it's not an abrupt surge. It's a real, you can tell that it hits, but it doesn't catch you off guard, but it just builds nice and linearly, which again is a characteristic of the triples, which I know was one of the reasons why they chose this power plant, because it's very usable and easier to access than say your typical inline four screamer that you've got to really rev high to get the power out of. This is a lot more manageable and more predictable from that standpoint. So yeah, the plan next is we're gonna do a couple little adjustments to the bike, I think, suspension wise, so I can really get it dialed in a little bit more for me. I'm gonna work on braking more, and we're gonna get back out on track here in a little bit. So stay tuned for more. All right, Ryan here with Road Dirt, just wrapping things up from our day here at Sonoma Raceway, riding the all-new 2025 Yamaha R9. Now, we've had a lot of fun here. I'll admit, when I first got the call and knew I was going to be riding this bike, knowing how much of a Supersport pedigree that Yamaha has, and I will say my standpoint was it's got shoes to fill, right? My thoughts were it's a replacement for the R6. I'm wondering, is it just going to be another, like a rebadged MT-09 with some fairings on it? And I can tell you, after riding it, after hearing Yamaha explain what their thought process was behind this bike, all the intentionality that they put into it, I can tell you both of those things were not true. It's a completely new bike from the ground up, from the chassis that's 10% lighter. It's like the lightest chassis that they've had. The KYB suspension that they have on the bike, everything's new from the ground up. This is not just an MT-09 with some fairings on it. Their aim that they told us was to really rewrite and bring a new definition to what Supersport means. Make it more accessible, make it there for everybody, and just make it something that everybody can enjoy. And the first thing that I noticed after riding it all day is it is a much more approachable bike than your typical inline four screamer R6 engine. With that CP3 engine, that triple, now I've always been a sucker for triples, and the thing I've always loved about them is that usable torque down low, and this has very usable power band. It's very linear. I think it's very approachable. If someone wanted to get into track days, it would be a very easy platform for them to go out and learn on. Just the only thing I noticed was there's a little bit of a flat spot, maybe around 5,000 RPMs, but when the power does hit around 6,000 or so, it's not an abrupt surge of speed that feels uncontrollable. It's very manageable, and it's very linear, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds all the way up to redline. Now, bike size-wise, when I first saw the bike, even in person, to me it almost looked a little bigger than the R6, but after riding it, it feels somewhere else, honestly, size-wise, it felt bigger than the R7, but almost smaller than the R6 in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of that's due to the suspension it has and the chassis that they have, like I said, that is lighter. And I was surprised, again, at how easily I was able to just flick the bike back and forth. Now, moving over to the suspension, like I mentioned before, that is all new from KYB. That is another big component on this that I think really steps things up a notch with this bike. That KYB suspension, I've ridden a lot of street bikes on the track before, and it's that typical, oh, it's way too soft, it's gonna need a lot of tuning, it feels very vague. I was surprised at how much this felt out of the box in similarities to like race suspension that I've used on, like when I used to race my R6. I could tell what was going on with the front, I could tell what was going on with the rear. I knew, like, okay, I just need a couple clicks here or there, and it would be great. If I was going to take this to a track, honestly, I think all you'd need to do is put some track bodywork on it. You could leave the suspension as is, just get it tuned up for yourself. And the adjustability that Yamaha gives you out of the box for the track specifically, or even for the street for that matter, is really nice. And what I mean by that is like the rear sets themselves, they have some adjustability built in from the factory. If you want to switch to GP shift, I had the guys do that this morning. The rear sets are set up for that. It took a couple minutes for them to do. Very simple to do, so I really liked that. Like I said, the only other thing I would change if I was going to go to the track is put on some track bodywork, maybe get some different brake pads or like an aftermarket master cylinder, because I was getting a little bit of brake fade as the day wore on. But other than that, it comes with a lot of the things that you need, and out of the box, I think it's really opening up and making the Supersport category and track riding and street riding for that matter much more approachable for riders. I think the bike itself looks great. I'll admit I wasn't really sold on the winglets when I first saw them, but seeing it in person, it looks a lot better in person. Let's just put it that way. It really grows on you. Seeing it here, especially in this colorway, it just looks great to me. So, and these winglets too aren't just for show. They did put some testing. I think they said they tested over 200 hours or something, or in a wind tunnel, just trying different configurations, or it was 200 different configurations, I apologize, on something dealing with the wind tunnel testing and just seeing and making sure that these had some function. It wasn't just for show because everybody's doing winglets. So again, they put a lot of thought and intentionality into this, which I thought was really cool to see. It's from the ground up how they built a bike like this. This is the first time I've gone to a launch for an all-new model, so it's interesting seeing all the thought process that goes behind it. And I think this strikes a really great balance between the street and the track. You've got a lot of those street-oriented features that come on this bike. You've got cruise control. You can set your speed limit to what you want. It's got all those safety features that you want that you can also use on the track. Your traction control, your slide control, lift control, engine brake management, all of those things. ABS. You also have the ability to switch ABS off in track mode. So again, it strikes a nice balance between street and track. Me being biased towards the track, I'm more interested in the track side of things. So again, seeing all the little nuances that they have on this for the track specifically is really nice. Now, what does that all mean in conclusion? I think this bike, to me, I keep coming back to the R7 and the R1. To me, this has the approachability and the affordability overall of like the R7, and that was Yamaha's original goal with the R7. It's one of their best-selling motorcycles, and I think this is probably going to do similar numbers. I think it's going to be very popular. To me, this has, again, that affordability of an R7, but it gives you a lot of the features that like an R1 would have, but you don't have to pay the price of an R1. Because the price on it's $12,499. Again, for that you get that approachability, that usable CP3 engine, but you get all the bells and whistles that you normally find on an R1. Again, seeing the dash, seeing all the controls this has and all of the features with the power settings and traction control, that stuff I have on my R1 race bike. And this comes with that from the factory. So I think they did a really good job, Yamaha did, of striking a good balance between the two, and I think this fits really nicely in between your R1 and your R7. And I think, again, Yamaha did a really nice job of rewriting that definition, which was their intent of what is Supersport. What does Supersport mean? It's not a screamer inline four that you've got to rev really high, that you need to really ride super hard to get all that enjoyment and all that power and all that speed out of. This, again, I hopped on this and was able to really enjoy myself on the track as it was. I could make a couple adjustments if I wanted on the suspension, and I could tell that I made those changes. It wasn't just a very vague bargain basement suspension. I can tell the difference. Again, it reminds me a lot of the race suspension setup that I've got on this. It's fully adjustable front and rear, and they put a lot of work into how the suspension works. I've never seen a suspension like this on a bike from the factory, and this is my first time riding KYB as well, and I was very impressed with it. So with that being said, I really have to thank Yamaha for having us out. I really enjoyed my time here on the R9. If you're interested in purchasing one, they should be available around Q3 of this year, and it's going to come in black, Yamaha blue, and this very, very sexy white and red that is derived from, as many of you may recognize, like the 1998 R1. And there was a mad dash when we went and chose our bikes for the day. I had to have the white and red. I just could not help myself. It was this or nothing. So, like I said, thanks again to Yamaha, and hopefully we'll be back for more soon. Again, really enjoyed myself out here at Sonoma Raceway. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's all we've got for now. So this is Ryan Nolan with Road Dirt signing off. Ride life.